Welcome to Living with Purpose, our podcast series on the importance of purpose and compassion. And there is no better person to talk about this issue than Nobel Laureate Kailash Satyarthi, who I'm sitting with. He's dedicated his whole life on focusing on getting children out of slavery and giving them dignity and hope. And he's now working on the whole issue of a compassion quotient so that all of us can live a life of purpose and compassion. So, Kailashji, let me start off by just asking you to give us one golden nugget that you live your life with.
I strongly feel that none of us is born without purpose. So, if we are able to dig out that purpose and concentrate on it, then we can definitely transform the world for a better purpose or for betterment. So, that is something which I strongly believe. Secondly, I also believe that everybody has innate ocean of compassion. But again, our education, our environment, our upbringing keep on making it dormant or covering it up. Again, if we are able to dig out that compassion and use it, channelize it for making things better around us, we will work with purpose and compassion both. So, this is not only my belief that one can preach, but I always live with that. My purpose was right from the beginning very clear, that every child should be free to be a child. Every child should be free to go to school, play, jump, laugh, and more importantly, every child should be free to have dream. And that is supported by the society, by the governments, by the world, so that every child can fulfill her dream.
So, Kailashji, you have spent your whole life fighting for this, but there was one moment that you have talked about that fundamentally changed your life very early on. Can you share that with our listeners?
Well, Akhtar bhai, this was the first day of my school. I was 5.5 years old. And I was born in a modest family. My father was a police constable. He passed away when I was young. So when I was entering in the school, I saw a boy my age sitting outside the school gate. He was cobbler. So instead of looking at us, he was looking at our feet, whether we are going to give him some job of shoe shining or so. So it disturbed me, disappointed me somehow, because I thought that everybody is supposed to go to school after a certain age. The first question I asked to my teacher in my life, that, sir, why a child is sitting outside and not with rest of us in the classroom? He was a bit surprised and he said, calm down, this is not uncommon. Poor children have to help the families and so on. So when I was coming back in the afternoon, the boy was still sitting under the open sky, under the hot sun, and his father was also joining him. Every day I saw it. I asked to my mother, my elder brothers and other people that why a child is sitting outside. And everybody had similar arguments or similar reasoning to convince me that it is not something new. So one day I gathered all my courage and straight went to his father and the boy and asked the same question. Boy was shy and he was looking like that. But father suddenly stood up with folded hands and he said, Babuji, sir, I never thought about it. My grandfather, my father, and I started work since we were children. And so is my son, he said. And I could see his face with utter miserability, filled with helplessness, hopelessness. And then he said that, sir, Babuji, you guys are born to go to school, but we are born to work. And that made me very angry inside, more disappointed. I started crying. I don't know the answer or his question. But one thing came to my mind spontaneously, that why a child is born to work like that at the cost of his freedom, education, future. And for us, we are supposed to go to school. So I was very disturbed for days together, and I started looking the world with a different eye. And I think that these eyes to look the world come from that boy's empty eyes, or with his father's eyes with hopelessness. That changed my worldview for the future.
And this is so important that there are certain moments in life that completely transform us. Now, you are actually trying to do that at scale in a very different way today, where you've launched the Satyarthi movement for compassion. Tell us a little bit about that and why you actually believe that we need to all have a compassion quotient.
As I said, all of us are born with innate compassion inside us. Normally, the compassion is considered as a weak, soft, or tender emotion. But throughout my life, in my own experiences and the experiences of my colleagues, I realized that no, compassion cannot be put in the same bucket as the people put empathy, kindness, benevolence, mercy, etc., etc. Opposite to it, compassion has tremendous power of social transformation, because compassion is the deepest connection with the problems or suffering of others that compels one to take urgent action to solve those problems as our own problem. And that is not the case in any of those emotions or feelings. Love is reciprocal, but in case of compassion, you can be compassionate to any unknown person. A compassionate person will feel suffering of the earth and water, and mountains and trees and air and everything, the entire ecosystem. So let us dig out that power of compassion and use it to transform the world for a better. That is the whole idea. I strongly believe that all religions and all revolutions and all efforts of social transformation in the history had the first spark of compassion when someone, sometime, felt the suffering or pain of other people as his or her own, and then acted upon it. So some have gone in the direction of creating faith institutions or religions, others have gone in other direction of revolutions and so on. But the spark was same. Unfortunately, the word compassion has also lost its meaning, and many words have lost their meaning. They become hollow or sad. So one thing is that we wanted to demystify this notion that it's a deep spiritual thing or a weak emotion. Neither of them. The reality is that it has power, and that power resides inside of each one of us. The only thing is that we have to go for evaluating our present level of compassion in action. We see across us, sometimes some medical professionals, doctors or nurses are more compassionate than others. The teachers are more compassionate, those who feel the problems of their students as their own problem and try to resolve them with that kind of sense of urgency, but that sincerity. And this is lacking today. And the biggest thing which we see in the world, that world has never been so wealthier, advanced in technology, filled with knowledge and information and data and everything. So we know the problems and we know the solutions. We have resources, more than enough resources. Yeah. But why these problems are not solved? Because the problem solvers do not feel that inner connection with the problem sufferers. May it be between the doctor and patients, may it be between the politician and the citizens, may it be between two countries. We have all the good words, we have all the good treaties and constitutional provisions and laws and international bindings and so on. But who cares? What is happening in the world in Israel and Gaza situation? What is happening in the world in Ukraine and Russian situation, in South Sudan, in many places of the world? There is no moral compass. There is no moral authority which can somehow stop this violence where the innocent people are being killed and suffering. So we need to find some way out that how we reach to that core cause. And the cause is the lack of deeper connection, where you can feel and you emerge as the problem solver. So, Satyarthi Movement for Global Compassion has been launched recently. And then one of the major tasks we have taken in hand is to, first of all, redefine, reinvigorate, rearticulate, and relaunch compassion as problem solver, selfless or mindful problem solver. Secondly, if we have to do it, then we have to measure the level of compassion. And the measurement is possible because all the elements, all the modules which are evolved simultaneously in the act of compassion are measurable. So I'm very happy that this idea of compassion quotient is being taken seriously by scholars, practitioners, even politicians, business houses, and so on. They realize that if we know the level of compassion in individuals, in the boardrooms, in the schools, colleges, universities, hospitals, and judicial institutions, and so on, then we can try to enhance that level of compassion. So on one hand, we are trying to measure the level of compassion which is active today. It could not be there tomorrow. It was not there before. This is the today's situation of compassion, level of compassion. And that can be enhanced to a higher level. So CQ can be enhanced. So we don't want to create a kind of discrimination or a kind of complexes that compassion is very low. As people can think of IQ, this person's IQ is very low and he or she can feel inferior to others. We don't want to create that because we know that this is not the case with compassion. Compassion is unlimited inside us. It is up to us that how much we can use it for the betterment. So this is the whole idea, to transform the world through compassion, measuring compassion through compassion quotient, and enhancing the compassion quotient in individuals, in groups, in institutions, and then also creating the mechanism to measure the level of compassion in the cities through compassion indexes, and the countries in the future, the compassion index. As we know, the happiness index. And I know that when people are compassionate, they are driven by a purpose, because purpose could be found to solve others' problem.
Correct.
And that problem could be individual's problem, and that becomes a purpose to solve the problem. That problems could be institutional or structural problem, like the racial discrimination, gender discrimination, the caste issues in the countries like us, or the communal problems, the tensions in the communities, and so on. These are the deeper problems. So once we are compassionate to each other, then we find the purpose, that why the people are fighting in the name of religions and cultures and histories, keeping the baggage of the histories, which nobody can say what was true or what was not.
Correct.
But we are fighting on it, and these fights go on between the countries. So that is the whole idea.
So to our listeners, I think the very important message here is every single one of us has the ability to be compassionate and purposeful.
Yeah.
It is just for you to find it and act on it. Again, purpose is that renewable source of energy that drives humanity forward. Compassion is the index. Be compassionate, be kind to everyone around you. Kailashji, thank you so much for being part of this podcast. And listeners, we'll have another session of Living with Purpose, but this has been just awesome to listen to Nobel Laureate Kailash Satyarthi. Thank you so much.
Does your company have a story to tell about purpose? Become a part of our book series. Visit onegoldennugget.com/living with purpose.